Hello, everyone. My name is Yuko Kaifu, and I'm the president of Japan House Los Angeles. I wish to welcome you all to the second part of this hydrogen solution series. We're very happy to co-host today's program with the Consulate General of Japan in Los Angeles and Japan American Society of Southern California. In the first portion of this webinar series last week, we featured how Japan is planning to accomplish a carbon neutral society by year 2050 using hydrogen as its main energy source. We also gained knowledge on how hydrogen energy is harvested, stored, and utilized. In today's session, we'll be focusing on green energy strategy and efforts being made in Los Angeles. The city of Los Angeles has its own ambitious goal to convert 100% of its electricity supply to renewable energy by year 2045, and hydrogen will be playing a key role to achieve this goal. We will first hear from Ms. Lauren Faber O'Connor, who is a Chief Sustainability Officer from the City of Los Angeles. She will talk about the city's implementation plans and international collaborations the city is engaged in. We'll also hear from representatives of two companies that are working closely with the City of Los Angeles, Mr. Craig Scott from Toyota Motor North America and Peter Sawicki from Mitsubishi Power America. As mentioned earlier, today's session is co-presented with the Consulate General of Japan in Los Angeles and Japan American Society of Southern California. We now have a video message from Consul General Akira Muto.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me and thank you all for joining this conversation. As Consul General of Japan in Los Angeles, it is my great fortune to be able to live and work right where the US-Japan relationship is the strongest and where the history of our relationship is the deepest. Maybe apart from the Hawaii, there is no region in the United States where ideas and elements of culture from Japan have made such a strong and positive impression. As Mayor Eric Garcetti has said many times, Japan is one of the city of LA's near neighbors to the west, and neighbors need to help each other. When Los Angeles was choking on air pollution up to the 1970s, children spent a good portion of their childhood not even knowing that there were beautiful mountains to the north of the city. When the former California Air Resource Chairman, Mary Nichols, was first appointed to the California Air Resources Board in 1975, the first automaker that could meet the strict new air quality standard for California was Honda. And from that day forward, automakers from Japan have been helping to guide the way to a cleaner and more energy efficient future here in California and throughout the world. Now the world is mobilizing to control greenhouse gas pollutants of all kinds. And again, California and the city of Los Angeles, ground zero for testing and rolling out new ideas. This is where I believe that once again in Los Angeles and California can benefit from some new ideas coming from Japan. And that is the topic of today's discussion, hydrogen energy. Japan is keenly serious about creating a hydrogen society, and we believe that we have all appropriate elements in place. Prime Minister Suga has declared that Japan will be carbon neutral by year 2050. About $2 billion per year has been earmarked for support of new green technology initiatives in Japan, with hydrogen energy as a centerpiece technology. And we have targeted year 2030 as the start of the hydrogen society in Japan. Japan's reasoning on this will be detailed expertly in today's program. But I do wish to send a special message to the city of Los Angeles and to California. I believe that Japan should not build a hydrogen society on its own, and Japan is ready to collaborate. If we work together, we can join forces in building a hydrogen energy sector, perhaps even starting with a flagship project of the Port of Los Angeles, and we can work together in promoting hydrogen-related cluster of activities with all of the technology development and employment which that might represent, spreading hydrogen from Los Angeles to the rest of the United States and beyond. Thank you very much again, and please enjoy today's discussion.
Hi, thank you, Consul General Muto. I'm Douglas Montgomery. I'm the chair of Japan American Society, a 112-year-old nonprofit organization focused on building and maintaining bridges between the US and Japan. We are very excited to co-present this webinar with our local partners, the Consul General Japan Los Angeles and Japan House Los Angeles. Being a longtime LA-based organization, 112 years, as the Consul General Muto mentioned, sustainability and contributing to a greener environment is near and dear to our hearts. Protecting this incredibly beautiful corner of the world is extremely important to us. We so look forward to today's webinar on the potential of hydrogen energy as a solution to our and even the world's environmental goals. And now back to Yuko Kaifu. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug, for speaking ahead before I introduced you. But it's always great to collaborate with and co-present programs with Japan American Society of Southern California, and particularly with you, Doug. So thank you. Before we dive into the program, I'd like to make a few housekeeping announcements. Please turn your attention to the screen. Audience is muted and videos are turned off. Audience chat is disabled, but please use the Q&A bar to send questions anytime during the program. While we'll appreciate all the questions, we may not be able to cover all of them due to time constraints. This webinar is being recorded and we plan to post it on Japan House LA's website in near future. Now let's welcome our first speaker, Ms. Lauren Faber O'Connor. Lauren is the Chief Sustainability Officer for the City of Los Angeles. She works across every city department to reach the city's ambitious climate and clean energy goals. Prior to joining Mayor Garcetti's administration, Lauren worked for the Environmental Defense Fund in San Francisco, the California Environmental Protection Agency, and Lighthouse Consulting Group in Washington, D.C. She has also served at the British Embassy as the Senior Policy Advisor for Climate Change and Energy. She is the force behind Los Angeles Green Energy Initiatives. Now, please welcome Ms. Lauren Faber O'Connor.
Thank you so much. And thank you to Japan House, to Consul General Muto for inviting me to participate today and for really holding this forum overall. It's just really exciting to see so many people from different interests, different perspectives, government, private sector, and beyond, looking at how we can partner together to really move clean energy future forward and accelerate it on all fronts. And so that's what I'm excited to have a chance to talk to you about for a few moments today. I was asked to talk a little bit of the general clean energy landscape in Los Angeles and certainly have a lot to say for how hydrogen, we hope hydrogen fits into that and already is. It's actually very, very good timing and funny timing to be speaking to you all today, this afternoon, because on this very topic, because tomorrow morning, Mayor Garcetti is going to be testifying before the US Congress, before the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee in the US Senate. And he is testifying specifically on a clean energy economy, on building back better platform in the electricity sector, but really the clean energy portfolio overall. Is if it isn't something that we are, day in and day out working on, it has literally been minute in and minute out, really getting prepared for this type of work and engagement that we have with the federal government. But it was really appropriate and exciting for him to be a part of this testimony tomorrow because what messages you will hear him say, and if you are able to tune in, you should, and we can circulate the link, but it's the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee tomorrow morning. It's 7 a.m. Pacific. But what he'll say, and what really has been driving all of our work in Los Angeles, is our complete commitment to 100% renewable energy grid. And that we firmly believe, and are demonstrating that a 100% renewable energy grid is achievable. And it's indeed can be a resilient grid and more reliable than even the grid that we have today. And the other kind of key theme that I think you'll hear that is really important to this discussion is that when we think of the overall energy landscape in Los Angeles, it is very integrated. So yes, we have significant goals in our power sector, which is incredibly important and a huge responsibility because we own and operate the largest municipal utility in the country, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. And so we've set really ambitious goals that far surpass the statewide goals for renewable energy in the city. Today, we're 40% renewable energy and over 50% carbon free. This is something that we're looking to consistently accelerate. So we're concentrating very much on, and I'll come on to how we're thinking about hydrogen in a moment. But so first we're thinking about the foundation of a zero carbon grid. But then integrated into that is a zero carbon transportation system and zero carbon buildings. And they all really interact. When we think about how we get to 100% renewable power, well, that means it's a balance of large scale renewables, of distributed renewables. We need that diversity and that larger portfolio for reliability, for resilience, to reduce costs, to address equity. But it's not just enough to do that large portfolio of renewable energy. We have to address the building sector, energy efficiency, building decarbonization. We have to address the transportation sector. And we know, and in fact, a major analysis that is coming to a close and we'll be releasing formally in just a couple of weeks has shown us that the more we couple our work to decarbonize the grid with decarbonizing these other sectors, with electrification in these other sectors, and general overall decarbonization, costs go down and benefits go up, benefits in terms of particular health and air quality. And the study is something we undertook with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. That's one of DOE's, the Department of Energy's premier national labs. And this is something they've been working in partnership with LADWP for 3 years now. And we're going to be releasing the final results of this study to really determine and understand what different types of options and pathways there are to reach 100% renewable energy when accounting for decarbonizing all of those other sources. And it is truly, you know, hear them say, one of the most, the most complex, comprehensive, integrated modeling analyses that has really ever been done for a grid like one as complicated and complex as the city of Los Angeles. So in all of those areas, in a zero carbon grid and in zero carbon transportation and in zero carbon buildings, there's actually many important signs that green hydrogen has a key role to play. And I just want to take you through a few thoughts for how we can carry forward our work and our partnerships. On the grid side, yes, we are seeing that there is significant scaling of solar and wind, of distributed, of utility scale outside of the city that are coming in through large transmission lines. But there also is a need for, particularly in basin, there is a need for longer term, longer duration, either storage or the ability to have renewable fuels on hand for longer term generation of electricity, particularly in those moments of need that we don't expect to happen often, but we need something there when it does. And, you know, over and over, the study is showing, and our Department of Water and Power has been leaning in for years now on the role that green hydrogen can play, whether that's converting the last of a coal plant that we have ownership stake in Utah from natural gas to a major clean energy hub in renewable hydrogen, as well as bringing through being a gateway for multiple sources of renewable energy through that power hub, as well as, you know, looking at what are the opportunities for in-basin, you know, hydrogen-based, you know, green hydrogen, renewably based hydrogen power. So that's on the power side. Then we're seeing on the transportation side, and I know we're going to hear more about this today as well, that, you know, there is a really important use case, in particular use case for multiple types of zero carbon fuels in heavy duty truck space. And it's really exciting. And I appreciate what Consul General Muto was saying about our work at the port. We are doing very exciting work at the port on hydrogen trucks. And in general, building out the potential for green hydrogen infrastructure at the port and what that means for port-to-port partnerships as well. The mayor is the chair of C40, which is the city's climate leadership group. which is a group that is made up of 98 megacities, the largest megacities of the world, every region of the world. Together, they represent 25% of the world's GDP. And the mayor is specifically bringing forward an initiative around green ports because of understanding of how together we can really push a zero carbon, clean energy ports future. And so looking forward to many, many partnerships associated with that work, and very, very excited to progress it. But, I will say, even in the building sector, we have to decarbonize the fuels that go into our buildings. And yes, there's a lot of work being done on energy efficiency, and new appliances come in that can be electrified. But there's also a really exciting, potentially very fertile place to really talk about the role that hydrogen can play even in those types of end uses. And so the future is very bright. We're very excited about what lies ahead in our clean energy landscape. I think what excites us most about it is being at the tip of the spear of innovation, which we can't do alone. Yes, we are the second largest city in the country, but we also really rely on our partnerships, on whether that's city to city through C40, whether that is incredible work through partnerships at the port and private sector level, whether we're doing that directly with the Department of Water and Power, working with some of the companies that are represented here today as well. And I also have to say that I think we have a huge, huge opportunity with the new Biden administration in Washington, D.C. now. And I think that the opportunity we have to push forward a clean energy agenda and really look to commercialize some of these areas of greatest need, like what we're talking about today, to me, I think is a whole other level of opportunity that wasn't available to us but a few months ago. So to that, I want to say thank you again to the Consul General. Thank you again to Japan House. I have to leave in just a few minutes in order to continue preparing for this testimony tomorrow. We have a final set of prep discussions scheduled that I have to participate in, but I hope this gives you a helpful snapshot to frame some of the discussion and some of everyone's thinking about opportunities for partnership in Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for giving us the great overview of the policy priorities, initiatives, partnerships, collaborations that have been already going on. And the fact that Mayor Garcetti is speaking at the U.S. Congress tomorrow at the Environmental Public Works Committee, did you say, is really great. And it's just a vindication of the fact that LA City of Los Angeles is leading the efforts for the national efforts. So thank you so very much. And we fully understand that you have to leave in a few minutes. We wouldn't keep you because they're well prepared for tomorrow's big role that is going to play. So thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Craig Scott. Craig is the General Manager and the Director of Electrified Vehicles and Technology Office at Toyota Motor North America. In his role, Craig manages the planning and development of alternative fuel vehicle programs, such as Toyota's Mirai and other heavy-duty commercial trucks. As Lauren was talking about, Toyota is developing heavy-duty trucks for port operations powered by hydrogen fuel cells in collaborative project with Kenworth, the California Air Resources Board, and the Port of Los Angeles. Please welcome Mr. Craig Scott.
Thank you very much, Kansan. I appreciate the invitation today to speak to you all about the activities we are working on at Toyota and have been working on in hydrogen out of the Los Angeles office for going on 2 decades now, a little more than 20 years, actually. So let me share my screen. So just a few slides to give you a little bit more context onto the things that are happening in this space and with Toyota. So oftentimes people hear a lot about battery electric vehicles, but it's good to know that at Toyota we've been working on fuel cells now for about 30 years. And you can see here sort of a sampling of all the things that we have done over this period of time, starting from at the lower left there, a very small RAV4 fuel cell vehicle that was developed in 1992, all the way to a heavy-duty truck, that the large one at the right there, the red one, which is what we call our beta truck, which was developed a couple of years ago out of the Los Angeles office, and everything in between. So here you may be more familiar with the products that are in and around the roads of Los Angeles and all across California. On the right, the very first generation Mirai vehicle, which we started selling here in California in 2015. And the new Mirai, which is the vehicle on the left in blue that we just started selling here about a month ago. And interesting to note, obviously, a much different vehicle and much more sophisticated, longer range car, up to 400 miles now of range. Most significantly, quite a significant volume increase. So we were building for global sales about 3,000 units per year for the first generation car. And now we've stepped that up an order of magnitude to 30,000 units per year globally. All these vehicles, whether they be light duty cars like the Mirai or heavy duty trucks like the Alpha and Beta vehicles that I showed you earlier, all of these need hydrogen infrastructure to operate. And here you see a sampling of the stations that are in and around the state of California today that are being used to fuel vehicles. About 42, 43 stations today in California. The state recently awarded a grant that will provide for funding for about another 100 stations over the next several years. And so you see activity really ramping up here as vehicle volumes increase. Today, obviously, and quite frankly, for many years, you've already been able to drive from the south to the north without having to refuel. But also, if you had to refuel, you would have spots in between. But densification of the network is now growing, and to be able to move in and around the state a lot more freely here just in the next couple of years. So this is a roadmap and why it's very important to partner with the state and also with the city of Los Angeles. So today there are about 8,000 gasoline stations in the state of California, which is quite a large number. But the reality of it is we don't need all those stations to have the same amount of coverage for hydrogen vehicles. Roughly about 1,000 stations would cover the same amount of cars and the same amount of population using hydrogen as we would get today from 8,000 gasoline stations. So that's good news and an indication that we are headed in the right direction. I think the funding coming from the state. On the right, you see a list of the support mechanisms that have been put in place in California over the recent years. So, of course, the ZEV mandate, which compels automakers to produce low emission vehicles, the low carbon fuel standard, which provides rebates and incentives for energy companies to produce and sell low carbon fuels like hydrogen. Interesting to note, not something that is often well understood, but last year and really for the last year and a half or so, all the hydrogen that has been sold in the state of California is 100% renewable, which is a really significant, important step towards a completely zero carbon or carbon-free transportation future. So there's grant funding that comes by the way of AB8. This is the funding that I mentioned earlier that will provide for about another 100 stations in the state over the next several years. There are vehicle rebates and incentives, provide reasons for customers or incentives for customers to buy the vehicles, whether they be cash back in the form of tax credits or these red clean air vehicle stickers that allow single occupant vehicles or single occupants transportation in the carpool lane. And then, of course, most recently, Governor Newsom's executive orders to have 100% light duty ZEV sales in the state, as well as 100% ZEV heavy duty DRAVE sales with just a couple decades from now. Switching gears a little bit to the heavy duty space and the activities that we have going on in the port with the City of LA and Port of Los Angeles, Port of Long Beach. Here you see the two trucks that we developed over the last several years using Mirai fuel cell technology. The truck on the right was the very first one, which we call the Alpha truck. On the left is the Beta truck. And from that, we launched a program called ZANZEV, which was a collaboration between California Air Resources Board, Shell Oil Company, Toyota, and Kenworth Packard, as well as customers like UPS and TTSI, to build 10 of these trucks, Class 8 heavy-duty fuel cell trucks, to build 2 new heavy-duty hydrogen stations that support these, which is quite a monumental task, something that had really never been done before. And then to have the 4 unique operators moving goods in and around the port and as far away as the Ontario warehousing district, operating and doing the things that diesel trucks would normally be doing. Here's a picture of a most recent activity, a program that we launched or announced several months ago. This is with Hino truck, and this is another Class 8 vehicle program that we're developing. And we have announced that we will show this first truck in the first half of this year and look for more announcements coming on this activity very soon. But also, this is another program that's being developed in the Los Angeles area out of our offices. This is an image of what we call the ocean truck. So these are the trucks that will be moving as we move from a prototype phase to a production phase. And these trucks represent sort of the latest and greatest and the next generation Mirai fuel cell technology that will be available for sale, we hope, very, very soon. But really the benefit of fuel cells is not just their ability to move vehicles around, or I should say, vehicles like automobiles, but also their scalability and their ability to take on different applications. And so here you see multiple projects and programs that are ongoing today using Toyota fuel cell stacks and Toyota fuel cell technology. So you have top left here a medium duty truck that's being operated in Japan. You have in the middle, top middle here, something which is known as a stationary fuel cell. So this provides a very reliable, high quality, high grade power to data center facilities, for example, but could be also used for hospitals and other applications. Top right, a fuel cell bus, currently operating in Japan, 100 of which are being built for the Tokyo Olympics. And a really great way that could also be used here in the city of Los Angeles to move commuters around. Bottom right is the Energy Observer, which is a boat, a catamaran type boat that was built to support sort of global message of ZEVs. And this also is powered in part by a Toyota fuel cell. Bottom middle is a cargo handling equipment or a yard truck. These are the trucks that move containers in and around the Port of Los Angeles. Today we have one unit operating for demonstration, but looking to expand that and see what the opportunities are for further use of hydrogen in the ports. And then finally, at the bottom left, this is the Motomachi plant in Japan, where not only do we build the Mirai, but we also build and operate Toyota fuel cells using the same technology and the same stacks, but at a smaller scale. And maybe the last point to make today is just how important hydrogen as an energy carrier and as a fuel. So aside from being able to provide the motive force for the wheels or for a ship or for power for a data center, you can also use fuel cells in the event of emergency or disaster relief. And actually in the top right here, you see a program that we've been operating since April of last year at Exposition Park in Los Angeles. We have two Mirais there powering COVID testing site. Once it became very clear to us that things were going to be different for a while last year, we immediately mobilized a trailer and some cars to provide power to a facility in the parking lot there at USC that was going to be doing about 500 COVID tests a day. And that those vehicles provide those power for running laptops, for keeping refrigerators going, and providing power for air conditioning units and these sorts of things to keep the staff happy and able to do their job in an efficient manner. And it's been a great program, and we're proud that we've been able to support this really flawlessly for a year now. I will say thank you very much, and look to take any questions later.
Thank you, Grace, so much. It's really good to know how hydrogen-powered vehicles are playing its part, not only for consumer cars like Mirai, but heavy-duty trucks in the port, public transportation, in many other ways. So sure that the audience would like to ask you questions in the Q&A session. So thank you, Craig. So the next speaker is Mr. Peter Sawicki, who is the Regional Director for Sales and Marketing in the Pacific West region at Mitsubishi Power Americas, which is a major equipment supplier and energy solutions provider for the power industry. Peter has over 25 years of experience in the industry with roles in design, engineering, project development and management, and sales. Mitsubishi Power is a leader in this industry, and it will supply hydrogen gas turbine to the world's largest green hydrogen electric generating plant. I'm sure that he would be touching on it as well. But without further ado, Peter, come onto the screen. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaifu-san. I'm very honored to be here today. Thank you to the Japan House of Los Angeles and to the Consulate General for having me. Yeah, so I've got a very full presentation here today. I hope to get it all done in 15 minutes. A lot of information to share, so I'll go ahead and start sharing about why we're so excited about hydrogen, specifically in the Northwest here. Okay, so I'd like to start out with just kind of setting the stage and setting the background for why Mitsubishi Power is so excited about hydrogen and how we look at hydrogen specifically in the energy sectors and other sectors. So we really don't see hydrogen as a generation fuel in the energy sector. We really see it as an energy storage medium, really allowing the excess renewables to be stored on a long duration basis and then utilized when needed. And so we look at the gas turbines of today, not really looking at them so much as just generators that'll run around the clock, but really as kind of a hybrid initially as a generator and an energy storage medium that can utilize a blend of hydrogen from day one and then decarbonize that blend over time as we increase the hydrogen infrastructure. And in doing so, we believe we can help to decarbonize some of these harder to electrify verticals. As we just heard from Craig's presentation here, transportation is obviously high on everyone's minds. We're very excited about all the progress that's made on the transportation side. There's also several other sectors, heavy machinery sectors in the state that are very difficult to just electrify and decarbonize through electrification. So we really see as hydrogen as being a tool to doing that. So generally, the storyline with hydrogen is we're moving towards a deep decarbonization anywhere from the 2040 to 2050 timeframe. And we're actually seeing a lot of pressure on those 2040, 2050 timeframes being pulled back. So we're very excited about rolling this technology out very quickly. And we don't believe we can cost effectively achieve this deep decarbonization without using hydrogen as an energy storage medium in the power space and also as a decarbonized fuel in the other spaces that I mentioned previously. So the value chain for hydrogen, including electrolysis, storage and pipelines, consumption gas turbines, this is all commercially mature technology. This is really not reinventing the wheel, if you will, right? All of this technology has been developed at scale and utilized throughout the world for decades. What we're really doing is bringing it together, and the economics are really starting to favor it as we roll out the technology. And so how we look at the gas turbines of today, we really look at them as kind of an investment you can make today, and that could be incrementally decarbonized over time as the infrastructure grows out. So I'd like to start out by talking about our mission statement. And really, the two key points of our mission statement is the idea of climate change and energy storage. As we see this market developing, we really see on a global front the need for deep decarbonization throughout the world. And in order to do so, we see the need for longer duration storage, which hydrogen will play an important part. So what is Mitsubishi Power doing to address this? We'll talk a lot about hydrogen turbines today, but we're also doing things like PV solar. We have a development company in Pittsburgh that does nothing but develop PV solar facilities, offshore wind. We have projects with joint venture with Vestas to do large-scale offshore wind. Lithium-ion batteries. We're actually installing one of our first large-scale units in Orange County right now. Will be commissioned in the next few weeks here. In parallel with the project that we'll talk a lot about today, with Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, we're actually looking at hydrogen energy storage on a massive scale. And then finally, carbon capture technology. This is well-proven technology that Mitsubishi's been developing for decades that we see playing a large role in the hydrogen space. So our hydrogen experience dates back since the 1980s. And we have over 3.5 million operating hours of hydrogen experience in our gas turbine fleet. So the key takeaway here is this is really not new technology that we're implementing in the gas turbine. We know hydrogen well. We know how it combusts in the gas turbine. And what we're really doing is looking to build out upon that technology and bring that into the latest technology gas turbines, which have extremely high efficiencies. And in doing so, we have this, what we're calling the world's first order for green hydrogen gas turbines. So this is the project in Delta, Utah, which I'll speak to in great detail in concert with Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. So as we see the activity continuing in the West, really the first project in the States was this project with the Intermountain Power Agency, of which the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power is the operating agency and largest member. So we recently secured the award for the 2 gas turbines that will be installed there, which will be replacing a coal-fired facility. So gas turbines will be capable of utilizing hydrogen from day one when it's commissioned in 2025. And then we'll increase that blend of hydrogen over time to have that asset be fully decarbonized by no later than 2045 timeframe. So it's amazing how quickly this project set the stage for the United States. Since that order, we've been actively working on other projects throughout the United States, and we've secured 2 additional orders for gas turbines that will be hydrogen capable, and also an additional 13 what we call technical selections, where developers and utilities have selected our equipment to be utilized in hydrogen capable solutions. And 6 of these projects include what we call hydrogen and storage solutions. So we're not only supplying the gas turbines, we're also supplying hydrogen production and storage facility associated with that as a total package. So we're very excited about the growth of hydrogen. And really the flagship project for us is this IPP project in Delta, Utah, which will be sending clean electricity down into this California market and other parts of other municipalities in California and Utah as well. So as we look at decarbonization, specifically in the energy sector, we look at it kind of as a 2-phase approach. We looked at kind of a shift from coal-fired generation to natural gas and renewables. And then the phase 2, we believe we're well into, especially on the West Coast, well into phase 1. A lot of the coal plants have been retired already, but we're still seeing other coal plants retiring in the West. And then phase 2, we're really tackling this long-term intermittency that we have by increasing the amount of renewables on the grid. We're going to have this intermittency, and we need to tackle that with energy storage, short duration energy storage and long duration energy storage. So I'll go into quite a bit of detail about why we're excited about hydrogen for long duration storage and lithium-ion batteries for short duration storage. And so we've been talking about hydrogen specifically in California since probably the 1980s. And so the question is, why now for hydrogen? And really, we look at this as kind of a four-pillar approach. We look at kind of the regulatory environment. Does the regulatory targets exist to promote zero carbon targets? Do we have a need for storage? Does the power grid have enough intermittency where we're having too much renewable energy and we're seeing curtailments becoming a problem? Production storage, is the cost of this technology driving low enough to make this an affordable solution? And then finally, is there a technology to bring this hydrogen back to market cost effectively? And so I'll go into each one of these right now. So specifically for the regulatory point of view, the decarbonization targets are very clear, specifically in the Western United States. We're looking at decarbonization anywhere from the 2030 timeframe to the 2045. That's 80 to 100% decarbonization. So we have to act very quickly if we want to bring these projects to market in order to meet these goals. While we're seeing this start out in the East, we're also seeing this activity grow throughout the United States as well. As I mentioned, some of those other projects in the Northeast and also in Louisiana and Texas region. So the market signals for decarbonization are extremely clear. The second point is, do we have enough renewables on the grid that curtailments are becoming an issue? So if we look at CalISO data from this last April alone, we're looking at about 300 gigawatt hours of overgeneration that needed to be curtailed. And so many of those hours of electricity will be utilized in batteries and stored in batteries for short duration storage, anywhere from 0 to 4 hours. But as we start forecasting out and looking what 100% renewable and complete decarbonization looks like on our grid, we see times of the year where we're going to have massive surplus of renewable generation, and then times of the year we're going to have massive deficits of renewable generation. So we see the need to shift that energy not only on a daily basis, but more on a seasonal basis. And that's where really hydrogen will play an important role. So we funded a study last year with E3, a major consultant throughout the West who has done work with the CEC and others on hydrogen specifically. And one of the key takeaways here for us was just to understand the economics around hydrogen. And so as you can see from the chart here, certainly on the short duration side of the equation, lithium-ion batteries will play an important role for energy storage for the foreseeable future. But as we see that need for duration, as Ms. Faber-O'Connor mentioned in her opening remarks, we will have this need in Los Angeles Basin where we're going to have to shift this energy on a longer duration basis. So we have this decarbonization, we have this resiliency and reliability in our grid. And that's really where the economics of hydrogen play out. Scaling hydrogen really is a more economical solution than scaling lithium-ion batteries beyond the 4 to 8 hour mark. And so as we look at the cost of green hydrogen, this is Bloomberg New Energy Fund on the left here, we forecast our overlay of where we see the data coming back from some of the research that we're doing around the project into Utah. We're already on the low end of where we see renewable hydrogen forecast today. We believe by the 2030 timeframe, we'll be well within the forecast of where fuel-derived hydrogen is today. And then going forward, we expect costs to drop. This is very similar to what we saw in the PV and wind sectors many years ago. As we introduce more and more of this technology, as electrolyzer manufacturers are scaling up, we see the cost of renewable hydrogen declining. And so what that means in a modern power plant is that you can introduce hydrogen as a small percentage in day one, and then increase that blend over time as the hydrogen prices fall, and basically maintain the operating cost over the life of the unit. So going into detail about the IPP Renew Project, obviously the most exciting project that I've worked on, maybe even in my career. So on March of last year, so it's been almost a whole year now, we were awarded the contract for these 2 gas turbines. So this will be the first advanced class gas turbine project designed specifically for green hydrogen fuel. This will provide 840 megawatts of reliable energy to Los Angeles and other municipalities in California and Utah. And so by 2025, we'll be utilizing a 30% blend of green hydrogen in the gas turbines. And then no later than 25, we'll be increasing that blend to 100%. So once again, I can't say enough how important this project is, not only for the state of California and Los Angeles, but also from a global basis. This is really a flagship project globally, and the world is looking to this project as we look at utilizing hydrogen in the energy sector at scale. And so in parallel with our company's working on a project called the Advanced Clean Energy Storage Project. It just so happens that the coal facility that LADBP is a member of with the Intermountain Power Agency is in Delta, Utah, and it's adjacent to salt caverns, which are actually, these salt caverns provide ideal geological formations for storing hydrogen at scale. So Mitsubishi Power and our partner company, Magnum Development, is actively developing a project where we're looking to store the hydrogen in salt caverns adjacent to that site and utilizing those salt caverns to act as the energy storage medium. So we're looking at production, hydrogen production and storage of that site, tapping into a lot of the renewables that are coming in from that region. So a very exciting parallel project with the IPP project. And so as we look at the development of hydrogen, as we scale it through the energy sector, really we're kind of in the development stages right now, looking at these one-off projects, and the IPP project, once again, being this flagship project. And so as we look to commercialize these projects, we look at from the 2025 to 2030 timeframe, utilizing a blend of hydrogen in the gas turbine. So nominally a 30% blend in the case of the IPP, the LADBP project. But as we look to the future, we look to scale up that percentage of hydrogen and really starting to develop hubs around hydrogen, interconnecting these hubs over time with dedicated hydrogen pipelines, with the idea that by the 2040 timeframe that we can get to carbon zero and interconnect all of these pipelines utilizing dedicated hydrogen pipelines and energy storage hubs utilizing green hydrogen. So just one example, we mentioned the port earlier. We're very excited about the potential for decarbonization at the port and very excited to see all the proactive activity the port's taking with green hydrogen, the use of green hydrogen. So the ultimate goal is really look to interconnect the project in Delta, Utah via dedicated hydrogen pipelines with the ultimate goal to get to the Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Long Beach. And in doing so, we can really follow the main corridor, the I-15 corridor, and tackle some of these harder to electrify verticals on the way. And so we consider harder to electrify verticals, transportations, data centers, fulfillment centers, military, industrial, and manufacturing. Ammonia and derivatives, right? The fertilizer market utilizes hydrogen to create ammonia and other fertilizers. And the process is right now very carbon intensive, and we look to decarbonize that process with the green hydrogen. Pipeline injection, we look at our existing pipeline systems. There's a lot of exciting projects going on right now. We're looking at our pipeline network and seeing what percentages of hydrogen we can blend in the existing network with the idea that we can increase those percentages over time. And also, as I mentioned, dedicated hydrogen pipelines as we find these hubs and try to interconnect all of these hubs as we move forward with this technology. And so as we look at these solutions, we really just don't want to be a gas turbine supplier anymore. We're looking at providing a total solution for our customers where we'll provide the electrolyzer. In the case of hydrogen, green hydrogen is created in the electrolyzer, which is basically a membrane which splits the water molecule with the use of electricity into hydrogen and oxygen, and then storing that in various mediums, whether it be salt cavern, or in the cases of the projects that may not have salt caverns, we look at above ground storage, even the idea of packing a segment of dedicated hydrogen pipeline with hydrogen as an energy storage medium. And then finally take it back to market in the gas turbine. So we're really looking to be a comprehensive solution provider from that with the use of green hydrogen. So I guess the key takeaway here is really, once again, I just want to stress upon everyone that this is not new technology. This is technology that's been developed for decades. So we have 3.5 million operating hours of hydrogen experience in our gas turbine fleet today. That dates back to the 1970s, 1980s timeframe. Hydrogen has been transported in dedicated hydrogen pipelines since the 1930s. Large-scale electrolysis systems have been around since the 1940s. And we've been storing hydrogen in dedicated salt caverns since the 1980s in the United States. So once again, everything in this presentation, while it's a pretty aggressive presentation, we need to move quickly in order to decarbonize our sector to meet these targets. And all of the technology is readily available to do so. So very excited about the flagship project from folks at Los Angeles Department of Water and Power in Delta, Utah, and looking forward to opening up to any questions. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Peter, so much for a comprehensive overview of what Mitsubishi Power has been doing, and it's green hydrogen as opposed to brown, gray, or blue hydrogen that you're working on to produce. So it's really fantastic to know about the Intermountain Power Project. It's fascinating.
Thank you, Kaifu.
Thank you. So we do have a few more minutes, and I'd like to invite back Craig Scott to join us in the Q&A session. So let me ask the first question from the audience. I'm glad that quite a few people asking quite a few questions. So the first question is, I guess that it's addressed could be to both of you, but the person says, given that hydrogen technology is thoroughly developed, why do you think it is not mentioned in the same vein as, for example, wind or solar? Why do you think it is not as widespread, so to speak, is the first question.
Yeah, so wind and solar really, they're the first path to decarbonization, right? I think hydrogen's really taking off now because we're going to these percentages of wind and solar that we're seeing curtailments becoming an issue. We're really seeing intermittency becoming a problem with wind and solar. So in order to unlock the ability for solar and wind developers to create more projects, we need an outlet for that energy, right? And that form of energy storage. So I think for that reason now, and with these deep decarbonization targets that we're seeing, the need for hydrogen to fulfill that role.
Great, thank you. Craig, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's a great response.
Okay, great. So my next question is for Craig. The person says, I have been driving Mirai for over 3.5 years now. My whole family have total of 5 Mirai cars for personal and business use. Good for you, Toyota. I want to know how many companies are producing hydrogen at this moment. Are there more companies starting to produce hydrogen cars so it would be more available anywhere?
Sure. So I'm going to take the liberty of assuming that we're talking about more companies producing hydrogen vehicles. In which case, I would say that there are a couple other vehicles on the market today, right? So Honda makes the Clarity, and Hyundai makes the Nexo, and I think basically every car manufacturer has announced some plan for hydrogen vehicles, in the next several years. So I do think that the answer to that question in general is yes. More people are making hydrogen vehicles, and in addition to that, I will just add that more companies are getting into the business of what I will say is, B2C retail hydrogen sales, right? So although as an industry, making hydrogen is a massive undertaking in the United States today, up until just a few years ago, it's really all been in a B2B world. So large producers moving to other large companies and not selling at a retail level. And so really, we are very much at the tip of the spear here for hydrogen in a retail space. So Ashley, I appreciate your purchase of the Mirai and your family having 5 of them. That's quite a testament to your support of fuel cells and Toyota. And I know you've probably endured some painful hydrogen infrastructure experiences, but it is getting better and will continue to get better as time goes on.
Thank you, Craig. Actually, my follow-up question to that is that how do you compare hydrogen vehicle to electric cars?
So interesting question. I'd say that hydrogen vehicles are electric cars, right? They just make their own electricity on demand, which is the sort of key difference between the two technologies, right? So both I think are needed for a world in which we move towards all zero emissions and no carbon at the tailpipe, because there are different use applications for different technologies, and we don't make one car today. We make Corollas and Camrys and Highlanders and Tundras, and all these things are important to give people choices to move forward. But I think in the instance where people need to move long distances with relative ease, similar to what they experience today with gasoline or diesel, hydrogen is a great option for that.
Thank you. The next question is perhaps to Peter. Where else in the United States or overseas are hydrogen-powered generating turbines being installed?
So that's a good question as far as where they're being installed. We're seeing a lot of activity right now. So what actually got me interested in this topic was a project that Mitsubishi Power is developing in the Netherlands. In that case, it's blue hydrogen that'll be utilized via steam methane reformation of natural gas, and the carbon will be sequestered from that project. So in that case, they consider that blue hydrogen. But in that case, Mitsubishi Power is working on a project where we're looking to take an existing gas turbine and convert that over to 100% hydrogen by the 2025 date. So the Europeans are really moving forward with a very concerted effort and very robust hydrogen plan. But also, as you probably know, in Japan as well, there's a very strong push for decarbonization utilizing hydrogen. One of the projects Mitsubishi Power is working on is the idea of gasifying coal from Australia and sequestering the carbon from that process, and then transporting that hydrogen into the Japanese economy as well. So we're really seeing hydrogen take off on a global front. I would say in many regards, the Europeans, I would say, maybe a little bit ahead of us in the United States as far as infrastructure rollout.
Thank you, Peter. We only have a couple of minutes, so this is going to be the last question. And I assume that this question is coming from a young person. So it says, what educational pathway can someone with an undergraduate degree in electrical engineering or science take to pursue a career in fuel cell R&D or design? Either of you wants to take that?
Sure, I can start. Just say I think there's lots of pathways. I think EE is a great starting point, and I would say ME and ChemE is also a very fruitful way. There's a lot of activities happening in hydrogen and fuel cells, specifically in the United States, especially in recent years. So a lot of activity now in the heavy duty space that was really non-existent just a few years ago. So whether that be at Toyota in our facilities in Los Angeles or in Michigan, or plenty of other companies, Cummins and so forth, are all now looking for EEs and chemies with experience in fuel cells. So I'd say your undergraduate degree is already serving you well, and it's probably a good opportunity now, good timing to dive into some sort of early job opportunity in the space, or continue your education with a master's.
Thank you so much, Greg. That's all the time that we have, but it's about the future. It's for the future. So looking forward to further development of the collaboration. As Consul General mentioned in his message, Japan should not build a hydrogen society on its own, and Japan is ready to collaborate and join forces in building a hydrogen energy sector. And it's great to know that it's really the project that has already been in the works, that the collaborative works have been in progress. So thank you so much both for the wonderful presentations and discussions today. And thank you, the viewers, for joining us today. Once you exit the program, you'll be redirected to the survey page at the end of the webinar. Please take a moment to fill it out so that we can continue providing high quality programs that are relevant to your interest. Please also follow us on social media platforms at Japan House LA, Japan Consulate LA, and Jazz SoCal to stay up to date on our other events. So thank you very much for joining us today. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cosmo.